Well, good evening and welcome to the third webinar of this parent series. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about whether or not you know if your child is ready for overnight camp. So we'll get started with just doing a little bit of introductions. My name is Samuel Obando. I am the Senior Program Manager for Resident Camp at YMCA Camp Thunderbird.
Hey guys, I'm John Barry. I'm the senior program manager over summer camp and conference at Camp Harrison.
Well, great. Well, we will get started with just on the topic of just identifying some things for you as parents and identifying those things in your kids. So, just a couple of bullet point um, things that we'll go over that John and I will kind of touch based on our experiences, and we'll kind of go more into depth. So, first, we'll talk about self-care skills. So, when you're looking into whether or not your child is ready, the first thing to know is, can they take care of themselves? What kind of self-care skills can they bring, or do they already have? So, for example, um, am I good at brushing my teeth? Can I shower? Can I put on lotion? Can I put on sunscreen? So, those are the kind of skills that just right off the bat, give you a good indication that they can begin to take those steps. And you know that when they're at camp, with a little bit of encouragement, of course, and a little bit of guidance from their counselors, they can continue to go that route. Would you agree, John?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think of brushing your teeth, getting dressed, all of those things. As long as they can do those for the majority of the time by themselves, then they're probably ready to come on. Sam, I know at Harrison, we typically tell parents ages 6 through 16 is the age range for us. And so that kind of gives parents an idea of where we start and kind of how long we're looking to keep their kids here. But yeah, if they can brush their teeth, generally, middle schoolers, we encourage to shower every day, but that rarely happens, right? But if they can get in and out of the shower on their own and somewhat clean themselves, I think another big one would be that they don't wet the bed. And so if that's a major marker, I know it was for me and my kids when they started going to camp, is once they've kind of passed that threshold of nightly wetting the bed or having accidents on a regular basis, then they're probably ready to come to camp and spend some time with some other folks. One, mainly for just the sheer fact that that's a laundry uh, challenge, right? But also, you know, it can be a place where other kids can have some opinions about that, and so we would want your kids to be ready to be able to make it through the night as best they can. Now, I know Sam probably has testimony to this as well. Sometimes kids have accidents, and that's okay. We as a staff are ready for that. We have some plans in place for that. For instance, last summer, young lady had an accident, didn't tell anybody. Counselors could tell just based on the odor, and so while she was away at an activity, they washed her sheets and her blanket and put it right back on her bed, and she never knew, to our knowledge. So that we can care kind of discreetly for kids who have accidents. But as far as being able to care for yourself, just making sure your kids generally get through the night without any issues. So
Right, absolutely. I think, while we label them as counselors, they take on a lot of different roles, a
yeah,
caretaker being one of them.
yep,
And they take that very seriously, and we do too here at camp. And so, whatever we can do to make them feel comfortable, is our goal, right? So, while we encourage here at camp to continue to build on those skills, you at least know that when it comes to those self-care skills, there's a nice foundation, which will kind of lead into our second point. Our second point being the independence and the separation. When you are talking with your child, when you are noticing kind of their interactions and some of the things that they start to branch out and do by themselves, that is a great indicator of just an increased independence. Camp is just a major, major, major supporter of encouraging kids to take their own journey. While we do kind of provide a foundation for them and we provide kind of set skills, we encourage them to kind of take their own path. So for here at Camp Thunderbird, one of those ways that we do that is by allowing them to select their activities. So while you may do that as your family, um, allowing the camper to select their activities that they get to do throughout the day, specifically their land activities, kind of gives them that ownership to select which way they want to go and what skills they want to build on. So if you're already seeing that in your child, and you're seeing that they can pick their own extracurricular activities, like they know what sports they want to do, they can stay on top of their schedule and kind of just make sure that they keep themselves motivated, then I'd say that that is also just a great indication.
Yeah, one of the things that I've encouraged parents to do prior to coming to camp in line with that independence is can you take them to Chick-fil-A or somewhere and can they walk up to the counter and order their own kids meal? And I think that's just looking at a slew of options between the activities. At Camp Harrison, we let the kids choose their activities at the activity times. And so they don't pre-select that. They just get to do it with their friends and whomever is around them. So being able to make a choice out of a buffet of items is helpful. And so just, if your kid hasn't crossed that threshold where they're able to speak up and share what they'd like, that's an aspect of independence that is a marker really for if they're ready for camp. One other independent thing that I'm thinking of, Sam, is well, when it's bedtime. This is somewhat specific, but when it's bedtime, can they get in their bed? Can they lay down and can they settle and eventually fall asleep without needing mom every single time or needing dad every single time or you know is it a 2 hour process to try to get them to fall asleep? I mean, you got to imagine in our setting, we have, if our cabins are full, we have anywhere from 14 to 18 campers and 4 staff in each cabin. And so every staff member has 3 to 4 kids that they're responsible for, and just making sure that they're settled and whatnot. And so, if we've got, I know this has happened in some of our younger cabins where campers, it's in a new environment. Day one is always a challenge, right? But if they always need mom to lay with them or sing them a song or something like that, maybe one more year will help them kind of get to that independence level where they can survive at camp, or I should say thrive at camp, right? We don't want them to just survive. So, but with that said, we have scenarios where kids have trouble falling asleep, and our counselors are wonderful at coming in and just doing whatever it takes to help these kids feel safe and comfortable and be able to fall asleep well. So yeah, we at Harrison we have a whole uh, plethora of things that we can do to help kids. We've got some soft, quiet music we can play. We've got a care director who walks around and is able to do nighttime prayers or sing songs, that kind of thing, just to kind of calm everybody down. We actually try to get our kids in bed at Harrison around 9:30. And so that helps them get as much sleep as possible before the next day when they're just going from the moment we say go. So yeah, I think being able to go to sleep is a good indicator that they're probably ready for overnight camp.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And a lot of parents may not realize that they're already taking that step. And if you haven't, maybe a good practice is, sleepovers. Like when they're just going for a night to stay over at a friend's house, gauge how that goes. Like John was saying, like, are they able to, do their same routine that they would at home by themselves, right? So if they have a
Yeah.
specific routine, like John says, that our counselors are very good with identifying like what kids need to kind of settle down. And we try to follow that, right? Like we play a little bit of ambient
Mhm.
music. If we need to do some storytelling, we'll do some storytelling to kind of do that routine. But if the child is already doing that, going to sleepovers and feels comfortable being away from home, that's already a great first step. And so if you're
Yeah.
trying to gauge that, I would encourage you. as a parent to maybe try there. Kind of see
Yep.
how that's going, and then you'll know, like John says, whether or not the child will be ready for overnight camp specifically.
Yeah, those kids that are in that 6, 7, 8 year old range, test it out with grandparents if you can. And we did that with our daughter, and we thought she was ready for overnight camp. She went to stay for about 4 hours with grandma, and we had to go get her, and so it just didn't work out. And so we postponed our overnight camp experience another year, and it worked out a whole lot better. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, every absolutely every journey is different. While some kids may be ready right at that 6 year old range, which we've seen on many occasions at both camps, some might be ready a little bit later, right at that 8 years old. But at the end of the day, it's about kind of seeing how their interactions are and how they build on those skills. A third piece or just another set of skills that to keep an eye on for your camper or your children specifically is their social skills. How are they when they come across other, children? How are they in social settings? Are they easily, getting into groups? Can they introduce themselves? Are they quick to make friends? I think those are going to be some key components. While we encourage, there are plenty of families that come with a group of friends already, which is awesome. It adds a level of comfortability, but we also want to encourage them making new friends, right? Like camp is about creating those relationships. And so seeing how they are in those moments, seeing how they are in those groups, I think will help you kind of just identify how your child is performing and how they can be in that setting for sure.
Yeah, I think in addition to that is their ability to communicate with adults and express their needs, so our staff are very well trained on, how to talk to a 6 year old, how to talk to an 8 year old, that kind of thing, and just help them feel integrated and a part of their group or cabin. But the campers have to be able to speak on their own behalf, right? I don't feel well, or I don't really feel comfortable doing that activity, that kind of thing. And so one of the good markers for parents is that their children are able to articulate their needs and their desires. Not that they get everything they want, right? But we can't eat ice cream at every meal, and
Yeah.
only. But
Yeah.
they're able to at least have those conversations and receive feedback as well, right? So
Yeah.
because we're going to I mean, overnight camp is one of the most challenging things for kids, and I think that's part of why they really love it. So we're gonna give them opportunities to be in uncomfortable places with themselves, with their abilities. Think they're going to do things they've never done before, and so their ability to communicate and articulate and debrief afterward about their experience is very, very helpful. And so I think that
Yeah.
that aspect of the social side of things is important to look for as well.
Yeah, and another thing to note, like you mentioned earlier, John, is, there are 14, sometimes 16 other kids in that cabin. And while everybody has their own, space where they sleep, uh, they're gonna have to get used to people coming into their space, right? Like in sharing
Yeah,
that space, being able to work together to maintain the space, right? Like keeping the cabin clean, doing their chores together at meals, being able to eat side by side and share food. So the
yeah,
interactions they have at camp are gonna encourage them
yeah,
to really like immerse themselves in a group setting. And so
yeah.
if your child thrives in that, then again, that's a really good marker that they're ready for overnight camp. If they're kind of like on the growing end or the building end, that's also fine too, because like we said, we here at camp, that's part of the growth. That's part of the skills that we want and the characteristics that we want to build in our kids. But, they're definitely gonna have to be able to be okay with that, to be okay with being in a group and sharing the space for however long they're coming to camp.
Yeah, that's real good.
Yeah. Another point is just looking for the enthusiasm, right? Kids are very good at letting us know what they need and letting us know what they're excited about. And so if your child is telling you that or giving you the indication that they want something more, right? That they're looking for that next experience, they have that adventurous spirit, then overnight camp is the best place. Overnight camp is the best medicine for that because not only do you have like those building blocks, right? You have that skill progression that we do as a camp, and we have those building on the characteristics, but we feed into the adventure too, right? To the adventure seeking that kids are looking for. If they're looking for something new, right? Looking for some challenges, then I think camp is the best answer for that.
Yeah, that's real good. I picture, you want to know if your kid is excited about camp. Maybe they have a couple of friends who are coming to camp already and they're the ones inviting them. And if they're getting excited about going, not just in front of their kids, in front of their friends, but also later when it's just you and them, then they're probably ready. And so giving them space to build excitement about being away from home and I'm a huge proponent of just being as honest as possible with your children and talking through, hey, you understand this is 3 nights or 7 nights straight away from home. You understand you're not going to be able to call me every day. You understand you're going to be having fun with your friends for 8 straight days, however long. And just being honest about those things. I think we underestimate sometimes what our campers, our kids really can understand and handle. And so just painting the picture of what a week at camp may look like, I think is very helpful as well.
Yeah, yeah, completely agree. And I know as parents, we want to build as much comfort in our children as we can. But one thing I really encourage parents to do, especially on that drop off for that first night of camp, is try not to give them the option, right? Of saying like, hey, if something happens, I'm just a call away. Like I'll come right and
Yeah,
get you. Because then that just it plants a seed in the head of a camper, of a child, and giving him that way out. And it doesn't allow them to kind of find their own level of comfortability. So we encourage
yeah,
you, like John said, just be honest, talk through it, allow them to kind of come to that answer themselves.
yeah,
And so that they can find the comfort with it. If they know that, they may be very excited, and then at drop off, it gets a little nerve-wracking, especially when they're new. There's a
yeah,
lot of new people around them. Our counselors are super high energy. They bring the energy. But, just ensuring them that they're safe, they're in good hands. We're going to meet their needs, and we're going to encourage them to just have uh, a little time for themselves, just allow themselves to immerse in the full camp experience.
yeah. I laugh, Sam, because I think, you know, one of the biggest that I've noticed with especially our young campers, the campers are excited. It's mom and
Mhm.
dad who are nervous,
Yeah.
so at
Yeah.
drop off, especially, they can almost be like, I can't believe my baby is going to stay here. And
Yeah.
they almost get reluctant to release their kids. And
Hmm.
so, if I can encourage moms and dads, like if you really think that your kid is ready, you need to ask yourself, are you ready for your kid to be going
Hmm.
to overnight camp?
Yeah.
And, I know this is true about our staff. Sam will say this about his staff, is that we hire some really great young people and we have a really great culture, and we really strive to create a safe environment for your campers. And that is our priority, right? We're selling summer camp to you, but we're really selling trust. Like you're purchasing trust in us that we're going to give your kid the best week possible. And so, and that's our heart, that's our goal. That's why we do this for a living. We want to give your campers, your kids, the best experience of their life this summer. And so, we don't take that lightly. And so when you drop them off, if you're not excited to let them come and have some fun, because you're going to miss them. I know that. And some of you parents, if you're not going to miss them, I know that too, right? But you got to be excited for them, because they will reciprocate your energy and excitement about what they're about to do. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Uh, that's why we do it. We understand the commitment and the trust that you put into us as camps and into our staff. And, we don't take it lightly at all, like John was mentioning. And so, bringing that energy with your child already kind of gives them a little bit of a shield and a little bit of excitement too, so that they can come to it knowing that this is meant to be a very positive experience for them. So they can just have a good mentality. Another piece to keep an eye out for your child specifically and wondering if they're ready is, are they able to follow structure, right? At camp, while we encourage the adventure, right? We encourage the independence. There are some pieces that are structured still, right? We still have, scheduling, we still have rules, we still have a co camper code of conduct, and it's just about following directions, right? Can they follow little pieces of structure already? Um, and the best way that I can kind of give you an example of is, every single day, at least for 4 out of the 7 days of the week, we have scheduled time, right? You wake up, you go to breakfast, you have 3 hours of activities, you go to lunch, rest period, 3 more hours. And so while every day is going to look different, right? Because it's camp and that's what it's meant to be, being able to follow that structure and being able to switch activities, know where to go, follow your schedule. I think that would be a good indicator too, just so that they can, keep that routine for themselves and find growth in it too. Everything we have in place, every rule, every piece of structure that we have is intended to promote safety, intended to promote positivity. Like John said, it's not intended to shape or mold kids in the way that we want them to, but it is intended to provide that environment, one that is safe, one that is positive, one that's enriching, and allows kids to grow at their own pace, right? With some limitations and some structure behind it as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and then the other piece is how, John mentioned it earlier. Sometimes it's, you're not ready as a parent. Sometimes the parent isn't ready. And so what do we do as camps to kind of prepare them for? Well, the biggest thing is just being open on communication, right? We send a series of communication out to our families, just trying to gauge and trying to help you in getting ready for camp. So you've made the step, right? You've decided you want to come to overnight camp. And then what do we do? Well, we send you 90 days before, or even before that, kind of gearing up. Hey, this is what you have to look forward to at camp. We try to be open as a leadership team when it comes to the things that you need, the packing list. We even do things like this, things like webinars, new parent orientation, just so that we can keep as open a line of communication with our families and with you as the parent as well.
Yeah, I'll just mention a couple of things that I know we do at Harrison, and I believe you guys do there at Thunderbird. I'm not going to mention specific dates here; they're on our website, but we do first year camper tours
Mhm.
for campers and families who have never been here before. And so in March and April, usually every spring, there's a couple of dates on the calendar where they can come to camp for an afternoon. For a couple of hours, they get to tour camp, meet the staff. And then that way, when they show up for check in that session during the summer, they're already familiar with some faces. They're already familiar with the grounds. They're already familiar with somewhat of the process. And so that helps ease some tension as well. One other thing that we do at Camp Harrison is we have mini week sessions. And so this is specifically for families who are unsure if their kid is ready for camp, right? And so they would check in on a Sunday, and they're here for they're here for Sunday night, Monday night, and Tuesday night, 3 nights, and then they check out on Wednesday. And so the cost is different, and they can do this mini week, and they're here. They do have the option on Wednesday if it's going really, really well. We give a call home to mom and kind of give a update, and we talk to the camper as well. And if they want to stay, then we talk to mom about that, mom and dad, and if they want them to stay, then they can stay the rest of the week. And so that's an option for families who are like, hey, let's stick our toes in the water and just test this out and see how it's going. And those sessions are on our registration website as well, where you can check that out. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Taking advantage of those tours, taking advantage of the orientations, the webinars, I think it's all, even if you're not registered, we encourage it, right? We encourage anyone trying to look into the overnight experience because we really do believe in what it does and what it does for families, what it does for campers. But I definitely encourage you to take advantage of all of those. And even at Camp Thunderbird, we, like John mentioned, just providing things like a tryout camp was just a little weekend, which is a quick glimpse into the overnight world. And if you're not, if you're a little uncertain, if your child's feeling a little apprehensive, then that's a great opportunity too, just to try, a night or two seeing away from home, for, just a quick tryout, of what it can be for them. And then we're just going to point out a couple things that I've noticed over the years of what we tend to see on that first time camper or somebody getting away from home for first time. And one of the big things that we always get the question on is how do you deal with homesickness? So
Mm,
homesickness, whether it's, 6 years old or 9, if it's the first time coming away from home, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. And so for us, and John will speak for Camp Harrison, there are a number of different ways that we deal with homesickness. So with counselors, we go through training during staff week. We talk about like, okay, if the child comes up to you the first time, maybe they're just a little nervous. They need a little bit of reassurance. You can redirect behavior. You can talk about some of the things, some of the fun things that you're already doing to kind of, you know, move that stressor from one end to the other. If it's continual, if it continues to go out through the day, where then now it's affecting how they're going about their day with activities and they're not participating, then it just becomes a deeper conversation, right? If the counselor can't handle that conversation or they just want some reinforcement, then we'll bring in some members of leadership. But the biggest thing I want parents to know is that for us, the last resort is calling home when it comes to homesickness. I
mm.
think there are so many different avenues and so many different ways that we can handle it. Like I said, we redirect behavior. We talk about the fun things coming up. We have friends come in, right? If they came with a friend, then we bring in the friend, kind of just providing an encouraging bubble, providing like a positivity bubble, I like to call it, so that we just kind of get through the first night. And I promise you, once you get through the first and the second night, homesickness is no longer the issue. So it
Mhm.
very is a last resort for us to reach out and call home. So we go through a number of different steps.
Yeah, absolutely. We're the same way. And I've in my experience, 20-ish years of doing overnight retreats and camps with kids is that moment we call home, it tends to exacerbate the issue and causes them to miss
Mhm.
home even more. And so we're not trying to keep them from you. Obviously, if a child is adamant and this has been ongoing for quite a while, then we're going to reach out to mom and dad without the child first and just get some more feedback, some more understanding of maybe why they would be homesick. We dig in and try to talk to them. What are they really afraid of? What are they really feeling? Most of the time, it always happens around bedtime, and it happens in times of the day when they would be exhausted. 9 times out of 10, maybe 99 times out of 100, if we can get them to get some good rest and have a good night's sleep, and they wake up the next morning, they typically don't even remember being sad about missing home. So, a lot of times that's how we handle our homesickness. And again, at Camp Harrison, it's the same way. We train our staff on this every summer, and our leadership step in, and just everybody at both camps is just a fantastic, caring bunch of folks who have years and years of experience helping navigate this with young kids who are nervous about being at camp.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're worried as a parent, just right off the bat, there are some things that that are already going to be a struggle. Communicate that to us. Let us
Yeah,
know. And it allows us to prepare, whether it's very discreetly, of course, never intended to shine a unnecessary light on any camper, but very discreetly, just going through the motions so that when it shows up for us, we know how to handle it. And if I'll be the first to admit that if it's not going as intended, then I'll reach out and we can work on a plan together. But
yeah,
it's never going to be one of those things where like, oh, I think it's time to go home. No, I think it's more of a teamwork, us working together on seeing how we can keep that child here, how we can keep them here because we know that
yeah,
the experience is going to be a good one. They just have to get through that little bit of a hump. Um,
yeah.
and then it'll be all good from there.
Yeah,
What are
Sam,
some other, yeah, go
I
ahead,
was just
John.
going to
Sorry.
chime in and say, like, one of the in the same vein as the homesickness idea is the,
Hmm.
like, what do we do when conflicts arise, right?
Yep.
Maybe camper to camper, or just any kind of conflict that's going on. How do we help resolve that with the campers? And in the same ways we deal with homesickness, we do it with the utmost care and concern, and really hope for that camper to stay at camp, continue to grow, continue to experience a great week with us. And so, our staff, Sam, I was thinking about this earlier, that we train our staff on how to handle homesickness. And it's not just
Mhm.
a get over it, kid. It's a, hey, we care
Right.
about you. We want to help guide and direct you through this so that you can grow. In conflicts, um, we follow a set of skills that we've been trained on, and we teach our staff the same thing, that we're gonna handle conflict, and we're gonna handle it in the best way possible for all parties. And so, other things we train our staff on are, bedtime routines. How do we help these younger kids get to bed well? On self hygiene, right? Like, to brush their teeth in the morning. I know we play songs, and they go in and they do uh, brush and flush time at camp.
Hmm.
And so, um, you know, we train our staff really, really well. We spend extensive hours just training our staff, and most of these staff have been here multiple years in a row. And so, um, you know, I can't speak highly enough about our staff. I know Sam would do the same about his staff. That we really try to instill into them that they have a big responsibility with your campers, especially those first years, because um, you know I hear people all the time who are my age in their 40s, and they're talking about they loved their camp experience. And then I hear stories where they didn't love their camp experience. And that really hinges on our staff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think right because we're going through these things, we're teaching our young men and women on how to deal with these situations and do it in a way where it's going to be conducive for the growth of the child. And
Yeah.
so, we like you said, John, we definitely take it seriously and we target these issues and we try to identify them in training so that when it shows up for us in the cabin, when it shows up for us in the activities, like we know how to handle them first on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some, well, I guess now that we can probably open some opportunities here for some questions. I know there's some folks on the call, to maybe go over something that we did go over, or maybe some concerns that you might have that John and myself can kind of just touch base and kind of give you a little bit of reassurance.
How do we take questions?
I see it right here. So it says, what happens if your child gets up early and what time is breakfast typically? So for Camp Thunderbird, breakfast is right at 8:15. And it happens all the time, I promise. We have kids that wake up in the middle of the night. And the good thing is that they'll typically get a counselor, right? And so if they wake up or a counselor notices, then we just kind of deal with it depending on what's going on. So if it's just a little bit of trouble sleeping, then the counselor, along with somebody else, will kind of go through that routine again, kind of talk through it, see what's going on. And I'd say probably 9 times out of 10, it's probably about 30 to 45 minutes of just trying to get through a little bit of uneasiness, and then the child will go back to sleep.
Hmm.
That's kind of how we deal with it. If it's anything a little that requires just a little bit more attention, then there's somebody who's always on call for that night too. Somebody on leadership, a director on call too, a manager on call that can go and deal with the situation if it needs more attention. But typically it's just a couple of minutes of I'm just a little nervous or I'm a little scared. I woke up, I had a night terror or something like that, and our
Yeah.
counselors can kind of soothe them through it, console them, and then they can go back to sleep.
Yeah, I say at Harrison, we our counselors spread out, so they are positioned at certain bunks in the cabin. And so if a child wakes up and gets out of their bed, first off, there's no bunk bed in camp history that's quiet, right? And so if they even roll over, you're going to hear it squeaking, right? So our counselors are going to hear it. They're going to recognize, hey, somebody's moving around. I probably should at least open one eye and check on that. Um, and then, so if somebody gets up to go to the bathroom, it's not a big deal. They go right back to bed. If you're talking about in the morning, Katie, it's a great question. Our breakfast is at 8 a.m. And so we typically, I think we set our wake up alarms for, depends on which cabin. The counselors can kind of determine that based on how long it takes those kids to kind of get up and get stirred. But yeah, our younger cabins typically eat breakfast first because they do wake up earlier than our teenagers. And so they're up around 7:15 and they're getting dressed and whatnot and getting ready to come over for the day. And so if they wake up any earlier than that, a lot of our staff are already up and preparing for the day because they want to go into the bathrooms to get dressed before the campers even get out of bed, just for safety and security purposes. And so, if they're waking up at 4 a.m., they're going to be encouraged to go back to sleep, right? And so,
Yeah.
but if it's just a little before, 6:30, 6 o'clock, something like that, we've got activities. I know at Harrison we have coloring books, and each child gets a Devo every year, and so they'll have opportunities to kind of do some things quietly there in their bunk before their cabin mates wake up. So I hope that
Right,
answers your question.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And if it's a group event where it just happens to be that, like John mentioned, the whole cabin starts to wake up early, the counselors know the best time to maybe, do a little bit of cleanup on the cabin, do a little bit of
Yeah,
self-care. You have some extra minutes before breakfast,
yeah,
let's do our self-care routine and let's take care of those small things together as a
yeah.
group, to
Let's
make
pick
sure
up all those
everybody's
dirty
doing.
clothes that are on the floor by your
Yeah,
bed.
yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely. So they
yeah,
they can certainly do those things. Another question here says, "What do I do if my kid is excited now, but gets cold feet right before camp?" John, I'll let you answer
yeah,
first, and then I'll chime in.
absolutely. This happens. I know how this happens. I would uh, just know that we are intentional about some of our pre-camp communications, and so we send out emails to make you as mom and dad aware of what's going on and what to expect, and you can share that with your camper. Okay, that to help build that excitement. We also have social media pages that you can follow, and in the weeks and months leading up to their camp session, they'll see more and more things that'll help get them more and more excited. If you're driving up, I mean, they're going to be excited, right? They've packed their bags and whatnot. If you're talking about maybe it's the night before, and you're about to leave for camp the next day and they get cold feet, my encouragement to you is, and this is just me as a parent of 4 kids, hey man, I've already invested this money. We're at least going there. Right. And so I'm driving my child to the cabin, and we're going to see how far this goes, and we'll kind of play it by ear. My hope and prayer and just thoughts about, if you can get your kid to camp, they're going to start feeling at ease because they're going to see all these other campers with smiles on their faces. They're going to see these staff who are genuinely excited about their kid showing up, about your kid showing up. And I think once they get on our grounds, a lot of those fear and trepidation kind of goes away. And so my encouragement to you too is, as a mom and dad, plan out the night before, plan out the next day. Like maybe it's you order pizza and you sit on the couch and you don't watch movies that night, but you sit and you talk about what they're excited about, and let them start building their own excitement in their own words. And you make it an event as you travel up. Maybe leave a little earlier and go get some breakfast somewhere. And then on your way to camp, you might stop and do some things where you have some intentional conversations with your children on the way. I know for us, you can show up. We have a tailgate party, which is an opportunity to show up a little early and meet some of the staff, get out of the car, stretch your legs, have some snacks. And we did that. We created that environment specifically for this reason, is to generate some excitement and help our campers feel the excitement of camp before they ever even get to the cabins. So,
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's about keeping that consistent energy. So if your kid's excited now, you're excited as a parent. and just maintaining that consistency for yourself. Keep that energy up. Even when you start to notice it get a little bit uneasy, keep that energy. Let them know that you're excited for them. And like John says, take advantage of those little extra moments right before camp. Camp Thunderbird is also going to be allowing that space and giving our families the opportunity to come and kind of just walk around and see. I also encourage you to, if you're local to either of the camps, take advantage of the tours. I encourage you to come out to camp, right? Come out, just look. With the tours, you'll meet some other people, you'll see some other kids, and that just kind of keeps them engaged. So I would recommend you staying connected to camp as much as possible leading up to that time, leading up to your session so that they can start to familiarize themselves. And then you can start to familiarize yourself too as a parent. But it's all about the consistent excitement, right? So you as the parent, the camper too, if you just match that energy and try to be intentional about having these open conversations and communicating with your child, I think that you'll be in very good hands.
Yeah, last thing I'll say, Sam, those are some great questions, guys. I appreciate that. Um, the last thing I'll say is, like, as a parent, you know your kid the best, right? You spend the most time with them. You have the most hours invested in them, and so trust your gut, right? If something just doesn't feel right, just communicate with us. We'll work with you. Please, the more information we have as a staff, the better we're able to serve your campers. And so please let us know if there's something going on. I encourage our parents to share, like if you've got something going on, like let's say a family member has passed away recently. Your child may be struggling with that, and it'll be helpful for our staff to know that as they care for your kid for the week they're here. If something's going on at school, if they've had some difficult times, or if some things are going really well, just let us know those things. And the more information we have, the better we can care for and serve your camper while they're here. We really, truly do believe that their experience at our summer camps can be a life-changing experience for them. So
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you so much for joining us on this webinar. Thank you for watching. Again, just a couple of things to keep an eye out for, the things that we went over, those self-care skills, the independence and separation that you're seeing, the social skills, the enthusiasm, right? Are they already telling you that they want to take that next step? And then if you're able to follow structure, right? If you're able to follow those rules. Those are just some of the things that we've seen as directors over the years that it could be some good indicators for you that your child might be ready for overnight camp. But again, we're here as a resource. We will answer any
yeah,
question that comes. So I encourage you, you know, hop on the website, explore, uh, take advantage of the tours, take advantage of, these webinars and our orientations. If there's still a little bit of apprehension, whether it's for you as a parent or your camper, just engage with us and we'll be happy to
yeah.
answer any of those questions and just have a conversation with you on why we think they're ready and why we think it'll be a great step for them.
Yeah, well said, Sam. Yeah.
Great. I will go ahead and since there's no more questions, we'll end our webinar and we look forward to continue to see our campers family grow. And we're very much looking forward to the summer. We're so excited and hopefully we get to see more faces on our next webinar. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Again, reach out if you need anything or have any questions for either of our camps. We'll see you this summer.
See you this summer.